Good morning. As Sian has said, I'm Susan Murray and I'm Director of the David Hume Institute. We are an organisation set up 40 years ago to increase the understanding of the economy and our society. Our founders chose the name in honour of David Hume's reputation for sceptical inquiry, which is something that inspired our conversation today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being part of this conversation, the story so far. This is a journey we've been on over the past few years. It's one of curiosity, as Sian said, and asking questions to increase our understanding. Thank you to the National Lottery Heritage Fund and the players of the National Lottery, without whom none of this work would have been possible. And when we started thinking about this work and the approach to take, we spoke to many people, and one of them was Professor Sir Geoffrey Palmer. He encouraged us to use Hume's own theories on himself, and it was a bit of a light bulb moment for us when he said that. Hume did not believe that knowledge was created in a dark room just by thinking really hard. He thought that knowledge came from the world around us and from experience and conversations with others. We used this approach, one of curiosity, not of having an answer before we started, but one of really deeply not knowing, to start this conversation and to help us understand better how we live our lives today. One of the questions we started with is how many people in Scotland today had heard of David Hume. So we commissioned a piece of public attitude survey work with more than 2,000 people across Scotland. And I've heard many people refer to David Hume in speeches and David Hume and the Scottish Enlightenment in speeches. Quite often politicians mention the term, we need another Scottish Enlightenment. But we wanted to know what really was the awareness in the general population. So we asked people. We asked if they'd heard of David Hume. We asked if they'd heard of the Scottish Enlightenment. We asked if they had heard of David Hume, what 3 words would they associate with him? And then we asked about their attitudes towards history. Did people think we should learn from history, or should it just be left in the past? Did people think the past affects our lives today? The results were all weighted to the percentage of the Scottish population. Can you change the slide here? More than half of people told us they had not heard of David Hume or the Scottish Enlightenment. And interestingly, when you look more deeply into the data, this is not a uniform percentage across the age ranges for the Scottish Enlightenment. It was younger and older people who had more awareness. For David Hume, the awareness was more uniform across the age ranges, with 48% of people saying they had heard of him. But by gender, the results were different. Men were more likely to say they'd heard of David Hume and the Scottish Enlightenment. But to be honest, this is a common survey behaviour. Men are much more confident in their opinions than women. So when we look deeply into this, we can see that not all knowledge is accurate. Because when we asked people 3 words they associated with David Hume, the word cloud shows with the size of the words relating to how often the word was said. It shows us the words you might expect, a philosopher and philosophy, were right up there. But so were other words, and not all of them were accurate. One of the reasons for asking the questions was to find out how many people was aware of David Hume's views on race, and particularly in an unprompted question. We know from the other work we do at the David Hume Institute, the Understanding Scotland Economy Tracker, how many people are struggling to make ends meet. So we wanted to know, in the discussion about David Hume being a racist, was it really in the mainstream? Or was it just a niche, nice-to-have conversation? The words gave us valuable insight. It is definitely not in the mainstream. More people's first word about David Hume was that he was an MP. And he certainly wasn't an MP. One person said he was Prime Minister. So it's really good evidence that not all professed knowledge is accurate. You might be thinking, this is interesting, but why does this matter? Should history be left in the past? Well, we asked people the question too, and overwhelmingly the response was no. There is a strong desire to learn from history and to understand how it affects our lives today. Only a small minority, less than 1 in 10 people, told us they don't care about history, and less than 1 in 5 told us that history should be left in the past. We've been on a journey with this project, Every conversation has brought new knowledge and understanding, but also more questions. You are going to hear lots today about the footnote which espoused Hume's abhorrent views on race. These are not views that can be explained away. They cannot be explained as of his time, and he didn't know any black people. It is not just a footnote. At that time, we've been told, footnotes were different from today. They were used to emphasise the things you wanted your reader to really pay attention to. He was challenged on his views at the time, and he did revise the text, very slightly, but he really just doubled down on saying that black people were inferior to whites. So why is this important when it was said almost 300 years ago? Hume's concepts on race went on to inform others, and some believed it helped justify in many minds that slavery was okay because black people were different. In our minds, we've looked more into the lifetimes and legacy of David Hume. The question has to be also asked, so what? So what does this all mean? What did it cause? Does it really matter today that some old bloke said almost 300 years ago something? Today is an insight into the journey of questions and curiosity. Hume's work served as a starting point for this discussion about our lives and the world we live in now. You'll hear from the young people the work that they did. They clearly think it does matter, and it has inspired them on a journey of critical thinking that they wouldn't have had if they hadn't been involved in this project. Or they might not have had. They might have been so curious they found another way, but let's just say this project was part of that. We hope you'll have fun today. We hope there'll be new connections made. I'm really pleased that it's a diverse audience and not everyone knows each other. There will be space to have conversations and think deeply about a really contentious issue. And you will hear some from people we've had conversations with and some who have created work as a response to those conversations. Thank you for giving up your time. We really do appreciate it. This is a big conversation, but we also know it's one that people find hard to have. So we hope you will all enjoy today and be part of the next chapter of the story.